Today's webinar is titled The Road to Member Engagement is Paved with Personalized Marketing. And I'd like to welcome Vivian Swartinsky from Higher Logic. Vivian, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, Vivian will be presenting today a fast-paced session on how organizations can gather your best member interactions and evolve simply from not just collecting data, but modernizing your member outreach and engagement strategies. Vivian's presentation includes how content personalization can drastically improve member outreach through analyzing interactions and thinking beyond just recipients, as well as leveraging the predictive nature of online activities to tailor the whole member experience. So we're really excited to get started, but before I do, there's a few things that I have to get out of the way. First of all, just quickly about your host, ACGI Software. We're product developers of cloud-based systems. In case you don't know who we are, Association Anywhere AMS is an association management software system. Certelligence is a credentialing management software system. And we'd like to welcome, a special welcome to a lot of our customers today who are participating in this webinar. So thank you for joining us. Our customers are all associations, professional societies, trade associations, some credentialing organizations as well. We've been around for quite a while, 23 years, and headquartered here in Columbia, Maryland, which is a suburb of Washington, D.C. We have project teams throughout the U.S. and Western Europe, and you'll see us at a lot of industry events. So with that, I'd like to turn the controls over to Vivian, if that's okay.
Well, thank you all for participating today. Very excited that you're here. A little bit about Higher Logic for those that are not familiar with Higher Logic. We are a software developer, cloud-based, and we've really earned a reputation for being a leader in providing private online communities for member-based organizations and also software user groups. So those are primary benefits often for members that belong to these organizations. And we also have, which some of you might not be familiar with, we actually have marketing automation as in our roots as well. And that obviously suits well because it's the communication loop across online community and email marketing and membership benefits delivery. So we are also an marketing automation provider as well. So as Arjun said, my name is Vivian Swartinsky. Not going to go into much detail about me, but what I do want to let you know is that I've been in this the marketing and the communication field for a very long time, and my roots for years were actually based in the e-commerce businesses. So we know, right, all about personalized marketing from our folks in the for-profit business. And so a lot of the communications and strategies, things that they were doing and they are doing today, I am very happy to be sharing with you because the road to engagement is really paved with personalized experience. We all experience that every day as consumers. And in the for-profit world, my goodness, it is dog eat dog world, right? Every email that goes out has to have revenue generated from it, and they are all over. So it's no wonder that they're really driving the personalizations that we see. We're, as consumers, we're the recipient of it. But a lot of the tactics that they're using, a lot of the technologies that they're using, you know what? We have those at our fingertips as well. And member-based organizations or software groups, you're trying to get things done. You're actually like making a difference and changing the world. So I'm excited to be talking about personalization today and seeing if hopefully everyone has at least one fantastic idea that they walk away with. That would thrill me if that was the case. Hopefully we're going to get that done today. So when we talk about the value of personalization, it's obviously more work on the marketer side, but it is definitely a win-win. We already know, being consumers, how personalized communications are a value to us. But because it is a lot of work, it's also really important to understand that it's a super value to you as well, because it's the way you're going to be able to move your business, move the needle on your goals and objectives. So let's talk about the audience experience. When you think about the audience experience, it doesn't just hang out there by itself. It's not a solo item, but it's heavily influenced by the technology, the data, and the strategy that an organization uses. So these three components are really the foundation for the experience that we give our members. That's why today we're going to talk a lot about the technology, the data, and the strategy, because that is the underlying foundation for the experience that people are going to have when they're working and they're dealing with our organizations. And the member experience ends up turning into the member engagement. I like to think of engagement as like the outward sign of the quality of the member experience. So it really makes sense that if we want to move the needle, we have to make personalization a priority. We have to at least think and be very purposeful about the member experience. We're going to be able to touch on a lot today, and I know I'm going to go probably very quickly because we have a lot to cover, but this is such a deep category and topic that we could actually spend several hours in it, maybe future webinars, right? So the reality is that our audience, and we have interactions with our audience across all these different touch points. Our website, our database, email, if you have an online community. Our audience sees us as one entity. They don't think of us in little silos or little snippets of data pieces. They see us as one whole thing. Oftentimes, what we do is we look at folks and we slice and dice them. We might have data silos going on. We're not looking at them holistically as, what's the overall member engagement level. We're looking at them in snips and pieces. And today we're going to talk about bringing that together, because that's really where you can do your best personalization and give your best member experience. Again, one of the foundations is the technology. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the technology because the meat and the potatoes is actually in the data and the strategy, but I must say that an integrated technology stack is your best position to be able to give your audience the best member experience, because you're going to want to pull data across these different sections, from your AMS to, you might have a learning management system, you might have a lot of events going on, so you have different technology partners and pieces that fit together here. Higher Logic fits into the online community and the marketing automation buckets, but all of these ideally are integrated and can move data from one to the other, so that you actually can have a much more holistic view of your audience, but also then talk to them in a more holistically way. Data is definitely what fuels the personalization. It is definitely the power of personalization. We're going to dive into all the different types of data. There are so many different types of data, and the data keeps coming, right? There's never an end to the data. I've never heard anybody say we don't have enough data. But what I have heard people say is, oh my goodness, we have so much data, we don't even know what to look at. Like, what do you pay attention to? That's a great question. We're going to answer some of that today and at least help narrow it down to what are the things to look at and how can you use things in a strategic way. Before we get into that, it would be really interesting if, for the folks on the phone, if we could find out, what data are you using for personalization today? We have a quick poll that we want to see if you could let us know. Please answer what that looks like for you today.
All right, we'll give you about a minute here to answer this poll, and then we'll share the information with the audience and get Vivian's feedback.
It's always interesting to see what, you know, folks have at their fingertips, and then what's getting used. So this will help us, and it'll help me, frankly, be more targeted in my conversation with you today to know where you're at.
Give you about 10 more seconds here. I see people are still responding, so. Okay, we'll close the poll down. And let me share this information if I can, Vivian.
Sure.
There you go.
Okay, wow. So database profile data definitely came in first. That's a significant amount of you are using that. That's excellent. Transactional data. Behavioral data is the least at this point. That probably very much follows suit, and then you've got some that are dabbling in all of it. Excellent. Thank you so much for participating in that. Just as the poll showed, profile data, you know, first name, expiration date, join date, title, those are certainly some of the more popular and easier steps to take with personalization. I think that's where most of us start, is doing those types of things, which can, you know, be very impactful, but it is still just the tip of the iceberg in what you can get done. While this is personal, it may not move me to make a decision. There could be some other rich data that's in your account profile that might be really helpful to use as well. I know that I've worked with different organizations, trade organizations, in fact, sometimes have a harder time, you know, hearing these types of this information and saying, but I work with, you know, my members are companies. What am I going to use? You know, but you're still talking to an individual. And one of the data pieces that have been very impactful for a lot of clients that I've worked with is the size of the company that you're working with. So maybe you capture, you know, the number of employees at a particular company. Because smaller companies might lean on you for things that larger companies might not. If you're a trade organization and your members are actually companies, there still could be personas even amongst those, because they come to you for different reasons, they need different things, and you might be able to even build personas right around some of your profile data. So there's a lot of good stuff in there, but even better than profile data, or more impactful, I'm gonna say, is behavioral data. So behavior is a very strong indicator, and I really do like this quote by the Next Flick VP, because we can make some assumptions about things and we could be totally wrong, right? But it's what people do that we can definitely hang our hat on. And I've had so many clients be surprised by, I didn't think that would appeal to people, but it did. I thought that this shorter message would be better than this longer message, but when I do an A/B test, I can see that they actually prefer this over that. I didn't know that a, you know, friendly from of a person would pull more than a friendly from of the company. But what I see tells me. So we pick up all kinds of information. The ones that we put out there in A/B testing, we're getting information from that. But better still is what we can read from what we're doing already. Again, if you go back to thinking of those 4 spheres, with email being one of them, oh my goodness, the amount of information that you can get from an email. Sometimes we think about just the positives, like who opened and who clicked, but what about those that just like suddenly stopped opening? The Brewers Association they basically sent a nurture campaign, I'm going to say to those disengaged, but to some of us, we wouldn't really consider it a 30-day non-open and disengaged, but they did. They wanted to nip it in the bud. So they said, you know what? If someone didn't open anything in 30 days, by golly, on day 31, we are going to send them a nurture campaign and a nurture email. And the email that they sent was comical. It was lighthearted and humorous, and instantly turned 3/4 of those folks around, and they remained engaged. So sometimes we can, while you have a lot of data to collect, it isn't about how do I use all of this, it's about for your audience in your specific situation, what could you use to help your audience take their next step, tailor that next conversation. You can also use email metrics and clicks and what are people looking at to be able to use dynamic content. So if we have a newsletter that's going out to everyone, but I know that in that newsletter list, there's a subset of folks that are new to the organization, I can use dynamic content in my email marketing to simply make their top story something more specific to them. And then maybe I want to have my executive. So even though I have in my newsletter list, everyone's going to get this newsletter, I can actually prioritize or order the stories that show based on who is getting it. And that's a really neat way to be able to, one, cut down on the number of manual emails you're going to be making, right? Because you don't have to make an email per version, but rather you can have one version that really satisfies different audience types. Online communities. Online communities are some of the best member benefits, right? Because people can come and get resources, people can come and learn and do professional development, people can come and problem solve with their peers. So there's a lot that can go on with community signals. Who's logging in? You know, who's replying to things? Do you have any advocates in here? If you need someone to speak at a conference, you know, it'd be great to say, well, who's most active in my community? And maybe I'll have a personal outreach to those folks and ask them, hey, we've got our annual conference coming up. You are an expert in XYZ. We'd love to see if you would be willing to do a presentation. Who's your best volunteers? Who could be a mentor if you ask them, you know? And you can look at a lot of these different things and say, versus sending a blanket email out to everybody, because sometimes I think when we communicate to everyone, especially if it's an ask, you know, you communicate to everyone, you're almost communicating to no one, because everybody's reading it thinking someone else will do that. Someone else will respond to that. So we can use our signals to identify the engagement level of folks and help them take their next step in doing the things that they like to do. It's an example, again, of community personalization. You know, everyone might get the community digest once a week. Hey, here's all the top discussion posts going on. But we can also order them so that specific folks, if they're in a study group, you know, you've got folks doing research, you might have folks that are taking a certification class. Like, you can reorder things based on activity. So this is a great way to also put the thing that's most relevant top of mind. And automated workflows, you can use automated rules. So again, the technology is there. It's just a matter of knowing it's there and being able to leverage it and have an automated flow that basically says, hey, we're going to send out a welcome email. Welcome to the community. Encourage them to update their bio. We can check. Let the system do the work for you. The system can check. Hey, did they update their profile pic? No. Did they get in on the, you know, introduce yourself thread? No. Let me encourage them. Let me give them a sample of a thread, right? Hey, just, you know, here's an icebreaker for you. You know, people would want to know XYZ. Like, give them a sample. So you can kind of help folks along in doing what they want to do, which is to kind of get involved and get connected with their peers and whatnot in an automated flow. There's landing page, and I know I'm hitting on a lot of different things, but I do want to touch base on, we've got a whole lot more to work with than what's in our AMS, which is important, but we have a whole lot more to work with. Landing pages. Landing pages, you know, the forms that you fill out, like, okay, I'm going to put my name, my email address, okay, and maybe my title. You don't want to ask too much on a form. You don't want discourage engagement with it. I don't want to fill out, and you don't want to fill out a laundry list of things. I'm willing to fill out 3 or 4 lines, and then that's about it. With the landing pages, you can have progressive fields. So hey, Vivian already said I'm a senior manager, strategic services. You don't need to ask me that next time. You can ask me the next question you would like to have. So I still only get 4 fields, but you've set up a hierarchy of, hey, if she answers this, present this one. You know, what is the specialty, my specialty or my expertise in the industry? How many years have I been in the industry? Whatever you want to ask me could be my 4th question. The next time I fill out a landing page for you, you've got that answer. You can ask me one other thing, right? So you can collect information from folks to help fill in the blank so you can learn more about them so you can serve them better. CompTIA is a company I worked with, and they invested heavily in resources, heavily in content. In order to be the leader in the Information Technology Trade Association, they have a multitude of communities that folks can belong to. And yes, they could promote that community to everyone, right? But how much more effective is it, and was it, frankly, for them to use the browsing behavior? So if I came and I looked at, hey, advancing women in technology, and I clicked on that and I kind of saw what it was all about, having a personal follow-up to that activity and inviting me personally to join that is far more effective. That's exactly the little signals that they observe and then send a personalized message to, and they get great open rates and great click rates because I had interest in that. I might not ever reach out to the organization and say, I have a couple questions, I'm not really sure, or I'm hesitant, or I don't know really what that, you know, involves from a commitment level. I don't really get it. I'm not going to ask those questions. However, if they reach out to me, hey, Vivian, this is a private community where professionals like you can share resources, help each other grow, answer questions. If I get a message like that, it might erase some of the fears or concerns that I had, and I might just go ahead and join. So that was when I think about, because it can feel a little big brother-ish, right? You're tracking all these things. I like to think of it in terms of what would be most helpful for the audience. If they were standing in front of me and I witnessed this with my eyes, would I reach out and help them? Would I reach out and offer them something? Would I reach out and tell them something? If I would do it in person, I feel like that's a good move to do digitally. So website activity, what pages were visited? How long did people spend on the page? What was the sequence of pages they visited? This has been very, very impactful for a lot of organizations to pay attention to this website, page visits, and especially like the duration or the number of visits. This was also the situation with CompTIA. They have non-members that can be a part, right? But they get very limited content. They have access to very limited things. So they were paying attention to how many non-members were trying to actually get, or non-paying members, I should say, how many non-paying members were trying to get at the paid member content. If I keep bumping against the wall and I want what's behind it, that's a perfect opportunity to serve up a follow-up specific to me. I am trying to get what's behind that wall, and I might not take the time, but if you make it easy for me to, hey, you're trying to download XYZ, do you realize if you were a member, whatever, they reach out specifically when someone's trying to get at something. And they're seeing a 50% open rate and a 15% click rate. So you see, it's mutually beneficial. It's not just like, hey, I'm gonna just go through hoops, jump through hoops, deliver a personalized experience. It's more like, if I saw you doing that in person, I would want to help you get what you're looking for. And I will observe that digitally and do that digitally and see if I can help you. Transactional signals. Again, event, join, this was a great thing for, anniversary dates, birthday dates, any of those types of things. Purchases, I purchased this, what's my next thing? I took that course, what would be next for me? You see that I'm checking out, maybe a course and there's a prerequisite, what recommendation would you have for me? Those types of things are very impactful. I'd like to share quickly, because everybody probably does renewal process, right? And you think, well, how do you really change that up? It is what it is, right? You start 90 days out, and then you do 60 and 30 and whatnot. That's just the way it goes. But working with one of our clients, I challenged them on what does the 90-day message really get you? And I'm asking that because you're saying that most of your audience waits until the grace period. So they're like 2 months negative, right? And then they're renewing. So when we start 3 months before, what are you really getting for that? And could that be repurposed? And they're like, oh my goodness, yes, absolutely. I said, there's going to be some people who are engaged and they just renew. But at 90 days out, if you have next to nil chance of them actually sending a check at that point, might we want to repurpose the 90-day? And maybe we want to say, and this is an actual flow, process flow from this client, is to say, let's start with, did they log in the last 90 days? Because I've got a bigger problem. I don't want to be asking for money right now if I have an engagement problem. So if they have not even logged in the past 90 days, I might as well use this 90-day, not to say, oh, time to pay, but rather time to get involved, time to get plugged in, time to sign up for a webinar, time to, use that for a different purpose, so that when we do have to say, hey, your renewal's coming up and it's time to pay, they've recently been plugged in, they're getting value again. So this is, an approach to say, am I doing what I'm doing because I always did, or can I instill some data insight, use my data to help serve this audience better and give them a message that they should get versus the one that I typically in a canned process give them. Personalization by persona. One of your handouts is actually a persona development worksheet that might be of interest to you. It's one that I use with clients, and this has been very helpful to identify known groups that are just starting somewhere. Oftentimes it's just where they are in their career. For trade organizations, it might be the size of the company. There's oftentimes when you can say this group just has very different needs and wants than this other group. And if I know that of them, I could serve them differently. So let me run through just a really quick scenario of how this may play out in a prospect recruitment type mode. So here's a scenario. It's an industry association. We've got two folks that, like everyone else, right? You Google things when you want to know an answer. We've got Rachel, just starting out, and we've got Jack, who's been in the field for a really long time. They would obviously be looking for different things in an organization. And Rachel is just like we do, right? We Google what we want to know, what we want an answer to, and her research leads us to the organization. So she's visiting the content pages on the website, and she sees a how-to guide that she wants, so she fills out the form and she downloads it. So we follow up with an email, right? That's like, hey, thank you for downloading XYZ. Hey, here's something else that you might be interested in, which is a very easy thing to do. Thank them for downloading, present them with another piece of content. Her repeated visits, she's reading blog posts, she's coming back. So this tracking behavior now moves her, because we have engagement scoring or lead scoring as part of our technology suite. So we're looking at this, you know what? Rachel seems really interested. I wouldn't consider her a cold lead anymore. She's quite warm, in fact. And you can send certainly, you know, an invitation to join the community or join the membership. And this is just being moving her through the funnel, if you will, the same thing that for-profit companies do all the time. But sometimes we don't pay attention to the clues, so we're not noticing them, therefore we're not acting on them. You know, Jack's online search, you know, leads him to the organization as well, but you know, he wants to know what this is about, right? Like, so what's their focus? You know, wants to check out, you know, how can I contribute? Is this something I want to get involved with? So he's caring more about what are they about? What's their mission? What's my opportunity to contribute? But, you know, signs up for the e-newsletter to learn more, gets informed about a webinar, registers and attends the webinar. And through his engagement, he ends up joining the organization as well. And because we have personas identified for someone kind of new to the industry and then someone who's been in the industry, I'm going to call him my learner and my leader. My welcome series to those folks can be completely different. You know, Rachel, I know, like, she's going to want different things right at the very beginning. And I can shorten the time to value if I can identify what she would like. And I can find out more when they actually fill out the membership form. So I might have a hint about people right at the prospect stage, but when they actually are joining and I collect more information, how can I use that right away to serve them a better onboarding experience? So before we jump into the next part, I would love to just get a sense of like what best describes your current email communication process.
Okay, let me get that next polling question up. You should be able to see it now, and we'll give you about a minute to respond here.
Yeah, so do you find yourself mostly doing one-off emails? Do you have automated flows that you can do?
And we've got about 80% of the audience participating. Give you about 10 more seconds. Yeah, a few more coming in. Okay, great. I'm going to close the poll right now and share the results, Vivian.
Okay.
There you go.
Are you seeing the results?
Yes. Do you see the results?
I don't, but go ahead and tell me.
Well, this one will be easy. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Okay, well, I hope the audience is able to see the results. The question was, what best describes your current email process? And there were really two answers. 74% had responded with mostly manual one-off emails.
Okay.
74%. And then the remaining 35% said mostly automated workflows.
Okay, great. Okay, well, thank you for taking that poll. That's great. The marketing automation is, and I don't even really like the word for that. You know what I mean? I feel like we should rephrase that. I think it's more about purposeful, yes, and automated communications, but a lot of folks, I think, hear marketing automation or you Google marketing automation, you're like, it's always pointing to, you know, business to business, business to consumer, this typical sales funnel, which I think a lot of us wouldn't necessarily find ourselves as, you know, that makes sense, because we don't approach our business model that way, right? It's different. But so it is called marketing automation, but I like to just think of it more as just being very purposeful in being efficient in sending automation or communications out. So marketing automation, the tools involved provide the data that we just looked at. We've got web tracking and landing pages and forms and engagement scoring and all of that. And it's important to know, because I, run into, when I talk to people all the time, are like, marketing automation. No, we're an association. I'm like, I know, but you could use these tools. So that's why I almost would rather they had a different name. These tools, right, can really help you move the needle and really make more meaningful connections with your audience. Obviously, you can do automated messages, similar to what I showed you in the Renewal campaign. You can set up, and they're basically logic-based flows. Like and this is a typical thing that I do. If it's a really important message that I want to get out, I always say to people, send the first one, give them time to respond, have that to the non-openers, resend it with another subject line. You always get a boatload of people who click on that second one, didn't see the first one, subject line didn't catch their, it doesn't hurt anything, right? To the non-openers, you send another one with a different subject line. Now I can move along and I can say, okay, well, did you, do this? Did you have interest in that? I can even tag people that are clicking on something and say, I'm going to tag them that they're interested in IT topics, because every time I'm noticing that. And then when I have a specific IT webinar, by golly, I'm going to make sure that I really reach out to all the folks with a more personalized message that have historically shown interest in that. But the point is, I can be like, hey, you registered for the event? Great, I'm going to pop you over here into the event registration campaign. You did not yet register? You still belong in the promotion campaign. So being able to have that stuff, think it through, set it up, oftentimes we say, oh, next time I wish I did this, I wish I did that. Well, if you can plan it ahead of time and think it through, you can actually do what you want. I know we always struggle with that of not enough time to do what we want. But you can now, with an automated flow, is deliver exactly the experience and the messaging that you want. Lifecycle campaigns are the ones that are repeatable, right? We have these, they go on all the time. I think about, one-offs are not going away, in my opinion. Well, there'll be ample opportunity to want to do those. But the things that you can, just have people qualify for and come into an automated flow and get your very well thought out, purposeful message, oh my goodness, like that's a huge time saver to be able to do that. And so these type of life cycle campaigns are perfect for personalizing the experience and perfect for automating the experience. Triple AE and Beth Arrett over there is a friend of mine, and she used web tracking to boost her attendance for her annual conference. She decided to look back at her analytics from the year before, and she said, the people who ended up coming were those that, had multiple visits to our web page. She kind of just reverse engineered her criteria, said, I'm gonna send an automated nurture message registration page and don't register, so that would be like your abandoned cart type scenario, or those that going to my event page, who are the keynote speakers, what are the sessions, what's the hotel information, like just checking out the event. And she specifically had a tailored message to those people, instantly got a 25% increase in her event registrations, kept that 25% lead right to the very end, and was able to attribute over $73,000 back to that. And you can see that she said, what we did was we touched the audience while they were in the decision-making mode, it was just in time. So the fact that she had a timely message to the right folks, not everyone, to those folks, really moved the needle because she provided such personalized experience for those guys. We also have, a scenario with this organization that wanted to move their renewal process from their, AMS because it was not trackable and wasn't able to be personalized as well, and wasn't able to be branded in style with a style guide like an email template could otherwise. And they moved it all over. And when they moved it all over, they were like, okay, let's make sure that this messaging is spot on. This caused them to actually pause and take the time to look at what they were sending out, update it, tweak it, and then take their brand new messaging and put it in an automated flow. And they were able to see a huge increase in renewals. And they didn't necessarily change the timing of the process, but just the fact that it was so on point with their audience and delivered right at the right time that they saw it. And then they had, they had hours back on their plate, right, that they used to do because this used to be a more manual thing. So we've covered a lot, and I'm going to be wrapping up so we have time for some questions. But again, this topic we could spend hours in. My one thing that if I say we take anything away is to think about how to use your data to better serve your audience. I'm very, very purposeful in saying what is best for our audience, our members, our customers, whatever you call them. Make them the center. The more audience-centric our thinking is and our design is with our templates, our messaging, our tone, the more spot on we'll be. And one of the things that I would say as a strategic tip is, what is the audience experience that you want to have? Oftentimes we don't necessarily even think about it, never mind like write it down. So here's some thoughts for you. I believe that most of us would want to have our members quickly experience value. This is a transaction. When they join, they're handing over money. And whenever we hand over money, we're used to getting something back instantly. And so if I hand over money and I'm waiting to get something, like I don't have my feel good right away, the longer it takes to get that, the quicker I can become disengaged. And I should be really engaged right at the onset. So how can we more quickly show value to new folks coming in? And that is the purpose for an onboarding and a welcome campaign. And as personalized as you could make that, the better that would be. And again, folks are busy. So if they can't get to something, I have so many clients say, my members just want me to hand them something. They don't want to come and look for it. Oh yeah, no, I'm not surprised. You're absolutely right. They want you to hand it to them. So how can you better do that? Obviously, exclusive access to resources, that could be community. That's why they, it could be one of the main reasons why they join. They can't Google it and find what you're going to be able to give them. Being respectful of their time and attention is something that we can be mindful of. I talk to a lot of clients who say, oh, we're totally oversending. Like, I know we're sending too many emails and we worry about email fatigue, but they're afraid to cut back because where would I cut? Well, that's where you're precise targeting. That's where you're needing to watch the signals and know that here's the folks who are interested. Here's the folks that are more likely inclined to convert, so that you're not mailing to the masses, but rather really kind of saying why is this person getting it? Why is this group getting it? And kind of justifying that for yourself, helping them make meaningful connections, and then helping them to get plugged in, right? So people want to be a part of something that will outlast them. So the next steps for personalized experience, again, I hope that you have at least taken one, idea from this that you want to run back to your team with and chat about. But it's really about next steps. Personalize on purpose. What is in it for them, and to leverage your data across all assets. Great that a lot of you are using your profile data. Some of you are using behavioral, some of you are using all, but are there nuggets in there that you've not thought of or not been or didn't know how to use that maybe you've got an idea about how you could best use it? And then certainly, you know, I say this, feelings you want to invoke, and sometimes they're like, what? And I'm like, oh yeah, people make decisions every single day on how they feel, right? We are an emotional people as humans. And do you want, when I say make it an audience-centric message, what feelings do you want to invoke? I'm talking about, do you want them to feel included? Do you want them to feel respected? Do you want them to feel like they're making a difference? What is it that you want to make them feel? Because they're going to feel something from the imagery, the tone, the messaging. And so to have an audience-centric approach is to be thinking about, I want them to feel excited. I want them to feel like, I understand, you know, your job is hard. So I do put that in there because I think it's worth taking a look at that, and that actually marries up pretty well with personas as well, and you'll see that in the workshop or in the worksheet that we included. And with that, I will turn this back over.
All righty. Well, thank you, Vivian. That was a extremely insightful presentation. And, you know, we have a few questions that came. We're not going to be able to get to every question right now. We have about 9 more minutes, and there are a few things we want to definitely try to cover, but we'll try to get to as many questions right now. So I'm going to take back the controls. And I would like to urge everyone too, just while I have your attention here, is that there are some handouts in the handout section of GoToWebinar that you can easily download, whatever you'd like, some information about Higher Logic, and also there was a questionnaire, I believe, that Vivian, you posted as well. And there's also some other materials that you can, and you're welcome to reach out to Vivian or even myself if you have any questions. We have quite a few customers here with us today. So with that, let me get to a few of the questions that we have. And I'm sorry, we also have a team of people here just trying to put them all together. You know, there was a question about GDPR, and I'm not quite sure if I understood, but it said, how's GDPR impacting the marketing efforts, and does it have a impact on marketing automation? So I don't know how you could answer that, but maybe you could speak a little bit generally, Vivian, about GDPR and maybe some of your experiences.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I think most of us have seen on websites now, you know, the banner and the I acknowledge, you know, that pops up at the bottom talking about the fact that cookies are on, and you know, you can choose to not, you know, agree to that, but that's on there. We have a lot of clients who really stay clear of and really use some, if they're unsure, they will use their targeting to be just in the US. So they will be they'll filter, in other words, if they're unsure, but everything, you know, that our clients are doing are absolutely compliant in that area, and they're not using anything if, you know, they didn't get obviously consent.
All righty, great. Thank you for that. And there's another question. This actually relates, I think they were maybe referencing something about a landing page. I think you covered that briefly, but what about landing pages? How important is a landing page, and are there some elements that maybe would help people stay on that page longer? And then they talk about bounce rates as well, how to reduce the bounce rates. I don't know if you could again speak a little bit generally about that.
Yeah, of course, it would depend on what the landing page contains. It's difficult to know what somebody's reading, you know, let's say a newsletter type thing, and what's being very popular now is certainly just having a little bit of teaser text and then having a read more, so that you don't have to have this really long newsletter type message that goes on and on and on, because all of the stories are, you know, kind of Reader's Digest version, and then you click for the real one. That's actually something I'm a fan of, because it's a better presentation in the email. Everything is trackable. when you now know what people are interested in, because you can track when folks go to a landing page. If you're using a landing page and it's more of a form collection, like, hey, download this, I would keep it as clean as possible. I would limit what you ask. And if you're, again, if what the platform you're using allows for progressive fields, I'm a big fan of that. So you're not asking too many questions. I get to things that I want to download and I look at the boatload of questions they want me to fill in. I'm like, I don't have time for this. And I move right on. So again, I think it's thinking about the user experience.
Great, thanks, Vivian. And there's a question from Catherine. Catherine, thank you for your questions you sent over. I think some of them are related to workflow. And she says a one-off based on workflow, the workflow is determined annually. And then it seems like a follow-up here is, would love a way to get something more automated, but really how far in advance is realistic? I'm guessing with the content. Do you have any thoughts on that, Vivian?
Yeah, most campaigns you don't need a lot of advanced work on. The campaigns that most fit into that category, like I don't know what I'm going to say in email 6 are around events, right? Like I don't know yet all the sessions and this and that. You can actually develop a process flow, an automated process flow, and put placeholder text and emails in there. And you can even have the system remind you like 2 weeks before, like, hey, got to go put the real stuff in, email number 5's coming up. So you can absolutely build and think through of your flow without knowing what every, content piece is in there. I use placeholder text. I make sure I make the system notify me, and as well as my own personal reminders, because, you do need to go in and change it. But that's one way you can move forward with trying to automate something without knowing everything up front.
Okay, thanks, Vivian. This question might have to be postponed, but I thought I'd bring it up because there's an interest. It says, I know this is a marketing presentation, but would love some ideas on how to get individuals more involved in communities. And so we know people for that at Higher Logic. I'm going to take that question offline, and definitely we will have someone follow up with you, Michelle. But thank you for that question. Let me just see if we're scanning through here. We've got 3 minutes. So Vivian, I'd really like to thank you today. All I can say is, the data that folks use in our AMS and other systems like a credentialing system is only as good as how you use it. And I thought your presentation was well received today. So thank you very much for presenting today. Really appreciate it. It was excellent.
Thank you for having me.
So just a few more reminders. Again, download those items that you can from the Go to Webinar console. So with that, what I'm going to do is put up the last polling question today. Thank you for staying with us. This is how we have to officially do it. And I'm going to put up the last polling question. And it's very simple. You should be able to see it on your screen right now. And again, I'd like to thank you all today very much. Have a great afternoon, folks, and we'll see you next time at the next webinar. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.